People stall because they expect perfection, but progress is the game changer. Measure what you did today, not what you failed to do. Progress compounds, small wins, stack daily, transform your identity. You go from someone who talks about change to someone who lives it. Listen closely. The world doesn't reward potential. It rewards execution. If you want to beat laziness, you don't need more time, more tools, or more talent. You need rules. You need structure. You need to move, even when it's messy, because action, imperfect, uncomfortable, uncertain action is the gateway to the life you keep imagining. And it's waiting for the version of you who doesn't just think about it, does something about it. You want to change your life. Start by recognizing what's stopping you. And most of the time, it's not a lack of time, skill, or opportunity. It's a lack of awareness. That's the beginning of everything, because what you're not aware of, you can't change. Most people walk through life completely unconscious of the patterns that are sabotaging their progress. They blame laziness like it's some invisible monster. They don't take a second to ask where it's coming from. Is it really laziness or is it avoidance? Is it fear in disguise? Is it the result of decision fatigue, mental exhaustion, or simply a routine that's designed to keep them stuck? You shine a light on a behavior, it loses power over you. But until you do that, laziness will keep you under its grip like an invisible anchor tied to your progress. You'll wake up, have that sense of urgency for a moment, maybe even get inspired, but then you'll slip right back into old patterns without realizing it. Why? Because you've never looked at the triggers. You've never taken the time to see when, where, and how laziness shows up in your life. Laziness isn't just sitting on the couch all day watching TV. It's subtle. It's that 5-second pause where you hesitate instead of deciding. It's that "I'll do it later" whisper that convinces you it's okay to wait. It's the way you check your phone every time you're supposed to be focusing. It's in your morning routine or lack of one. It's in the way you stay up late even though you know it'll make tomorrow harder. And it's in the people you spend time with who normalize procrastination, excuse making, and playing small. You see, laziness isn't an identity, it's a behavior. And every behavior has a trigger. If you never look at what triggers yours, you'll always think the problem is you. But the truth is, once you develop self-awareness, everything begins to shift. You start catching yourself in those micro moments when you would have fallen back. You become the observer of your own decisions, your own habits. And when you become the observer, you become the master. You realize that laziness isn't just random, it has a structure. Maybe you always feel lazy after lunch because your energy dips. Maybe you feel unmotivated at night because your willpower is drained. Maybe you avoid certain tasks because deep down you're afraid of failing. These are patterns, and patterns can be interrupted. When you know yourself, you don't need to wait for motivation to strike. You design your day around your tendencies. You shift your schedule, build in routines, create boundaries that prevent the slip before it happens. That's the power of awareness. It's not just mental. It's tactical. It helps you anticipate the problem before it appears instead of reacting to it after it's already stolen your momentum. And it's not about judging yourself either. Awareness isn't shame, it's power. It's the moment you take the wheel back from the autopilot that's been driving your life. You can't beat laziness if you don't understand what triggers it. You can't take control of your behavior if you're unwilling to observe it in real time. So this isn't about forcing yourself into some hustle culture mindset. It's about taking inventory of what's actually happening behind the scenes of your daily life. Most people never do this. They complain about their lack of action. They never study it. They repeat the same patterns, blame their personality, blame their past, blame their circumstances, but never their lack of self-inquiry. That's why awareness matters. Because once you're aware, now you can choose differently. You can replace that trigger. You can create a new routine. You can take that hesitation and replace it with a decision. You become proactive instead of reactive. You stop being a victim of your moods and start being the architect of your behavior. If you want to beat laziness, the first rule isn't about taking action. It's about watching, not passively. You become the scientist of your own life. You track your patterns, your energy, your distractions. And slowly, you begin to see where it all begins. And once you know that, once you understand the why, you finally gain control of the how. And that's when the shift happens. That's when you stop saying, "I don't know why I keep doing this," and you start saying, "I see it now, and I'm done with it." That's when laziness starts to die. Not with a big leap, with a series of conscious choices made by someone who's finally paying attention. People think laziness is a time problem, but it's not. It's an emotion problem. You're not lazy because you don't have enough hours in the day. You're lazy because you don't feel like doing the thing you know you should. And that feeling, whether it's boredom, fear, overwhelm, just lack of interest, becomes the barrier between you and action. We've been taught to believe that we should wait until we feel inspired to move, but that's not how high performers operate. They don't wait for emotion. They create it. Because when you change how you feel about the task, you change your willingness to engage with it. Think about the things you procrastinate the most. It's not random. There's something underneath. Maybe it's a conversation you've been avoiding, a project you've been putting off for weeks, or a goal you talk about but never start. The reason you haven't moved isn't because you're incapable. It's because the emotion tied to that action is heavy. It feels uncomfortable. It feels unclear. It feels like too much. And instead of facing it, your brain does what it's wired to do, protect you. It finds a distraction, it invents an excuse, it justifies waiting. That's not laziness, that's emotional avoidance. Here's the truth, no one likes to hear emotions don't just happen, they're built. And you can build better ones, just like you can build muscle, you can build emotional momentum. You can train your nervous system to associate action with pleasure instead of pain, and that's a game changer. Because when you do that, you don't need to push yourself. You're pulled by something deeper. The secret is association. Every time you think about something you've been avoiding, your mind immediately connects it with discomfort. That's why your body resists. That's why you delay. But what if you change what that task meant to you? If instead of seeing it as a burden, you began to see it as a bridge to freedom, a bridge to power, a bridge to self-respect. Because that's what action gives you. It gives you yourself back. We've all had moments where we didn't want to do something, but we did it anyway and felt amazing afterward. That feeling, that rush, that sense of I actually did it. That's your emotional system giving you feedback. This is who you really are. The hesitation, not the excuses, not the delays. The version of you that takes action is the version of you that's most alive. But to get there, you've got to learn how to shift your state. And you do that by changing your focus, your language, your movement. Focus. What are you focusing on when you feel lazy? Usually it's the discomfort, the long process, the hard part. But what if you focused on the result, on the pride you'll feel once it's done, on how your future self will thank you? Focus goes, energy flows. Language, where you say to yourself when you avoid the task, probably things like, it's too hard, or I'll do it later. Words shape emotion. Change your language and you change your state. Say, this is exactly what I need right now, or doing this will make me stronger. Feed yourself the truth, not the excuse movement. How do you sit when you're lazy? Slouched. Still, breath shallow. That posture is the emotion. Shift your physiology and you shift your emotion. Stand up. Breathe deep. Move with purpose. It's not fake. It's how you unlock real energy. Because ultimately, emotion drives motion. And if you want to move, you have to prime yourself emotionally. You don't need more time. You don't need perfect conditions. You need a new way to feel about what you're avoiding. And that shift, that emotional transformation, is completely in your control every single day. You want to beat laziness. Start feeling differently about the thing you're avoiding. Don't wait to feel good. Generate it. Because when you learn to do that, action becomes your default. It's not forced. It's not stressful. It's natural because you've taken control of the root cause, the emotion behind the motion. Most people are waiting for motivation to save them. They sit and hope that one day they'll feel different, that a spark will hit them, that inspiration will flood in. They'll finally do what they've been putting off. But that day never comes because motivation is like a mood. It's inconsistent, unpredictable, and unreliable. It might show up for 5 minutes after a powerful video or an emotional quote. It doesn't stay. And if your success depends on how motivated you feel in the moment, you're already setting yourself up to lose. That's why discipline matters more. Discipline is what shows up when motivation disappears. Discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. It's a habit, not a gift. It's about making a decision once and repeating it until it becomes automatic. The truth is, every person who has accomplished anything meaningful did it not because they always felt like it, but because they trained themselves to do what had to be done regardless of how they felt. They didn't need to negotiate with their emotions every morning. They made the decision in advance. That's what discipline does. It removes the debate. There's a difference between people who wait to act and people who act regardless. The people who win don't have more time, more luck, or better genes. They have stronger standards. They hold themselves to those standards daily. They don't rely on hype. They rely on habits. And those habits are born out of discipline. It's waking up early, not because it's easy, but because it sets the tone. It's going to the gym when you're tired because you said you would. It's sitting down to work when distractions are calling your name because your future matters more than your feelings. Most people think discipline is painful. It's not. The pain comes from inconsistency, from regret, from knowing what you should do but not doing it. That's the real suffering. Discipline isn't punishment, it's freedom. It frees you from the chaos of your own excuses. It frees you from that constant inner conflict. It creates clarity, structure, and peace of mind. When you're disciplined, your life becomes simpler. You don't waste energy deciding every day whether or not you're going to act. You've already made the decision, you just execute. And the beauty is, discipline grows. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes. It compounds. Every time you honor a commitment to yourself, you build self-respect. And that self-respect becomes fuel. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. And when that identity takes root, everything changes. Because now you're not chasing motivation, you're powered by who you've become. That's the mistake most people make. They look for motivation before they move. But high performers flip it. They move first. They do the thing, even when they don't feel like it. And once they do, the momentum kicks in. That's when emotion catches up. But it starts with discipline. With doing the work regardless of what your mood says, with keeping promises to yourself when nobody's watching. That's the difference between a wish and a decision. Discipline's in the boring moments, in the routines. in the repetition. It's built when you shut off distractions, say no to temptation, and focus on what matters. It's not glamorous. It's not loud. It's consistent, quiet, relentless, and that's why it works. While others are waiting to feel ready, the disciplined are already moving. They're ahead not because they're better, but because they refuse to wait. And here's the truth. Discipline is hard in the beginning, but it makes life easier. Laziness feels easy now, but makes life harder later. Discipline demands effort up front, but it gives you freedom, strength, and control on the other side. It's the trade-off. You can either suffer from the discomfort of discipline today or the regret of inaction tomorrow. So stop chasing moods, stop relying on feelings, build discipline like a muscle, train it, strengthen it, use it, and one day you'll realize that you don't need motivation to move. You've already become the kind of person who moves no matter what around your life. And be honest, how many of your choices are truly yours and how many are shaped by what surrounds you? Because here's the truth, your environment is either pushing you forward or pulling you back. It's either fueling your focus or feeding your distractions. Most people underestimate just how much their surroundings influence their actions. They blame themselves for being lazy or unmotivated. They're living inside a system that sets them up to fail from the moment they wake up. You cannot expect to build discipline in a space built for comfort. You cannot expect to take action when everything around you encourages delay. Your environment is not just physical, it's emotional, digital, and social. What's on your desk, what's on your phone, who's in your circle, what noise fills your space, all of it matters. If your phone is the first thing you see in the morning, your notifications are filled with distractions. You're not starting your day, you're reacting to it. If your room, your workspace, or your home is full of clutter, it creates mental fog. It's not just a mess, it's a mental drag. Sends a silent message that chaos is normal and structure is optional. Let's be real, people don't fail because they're not capable. They fail because their environment makes failure feel normal. If you surround yourself with people who are always distracted, always complaining, always avoiding, that becomes your default. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. Standards are shaped by the people and patterns around you every single day. Think about how easy it is to fall into laziness when everything in your environment makes it effortless to be distracted. A TV remote within arm's reach. A couch that's more familiar than your journal. Apps on your phone that are designed to steal your attention in seconds. You've got to ask yourself, are these things serving my mission or stealing from it? Taking control of your environment means taking full ownership of your life. You eliminate the excuses before they even show up. You put your phone in another room when it's time to focus. You clean your space because a clean environment leads to a clear mind. You change your digital environment, unsubscribe, unfollow, declutter your screen time. You don't leave your progress up to chance, you engineer it. The same goes for the people around you. If your circle encourages laziness, if they laugh off procrastination, if they normalize small thinking, you have to make a decision. Not everyone can go with you where you're going. Sometimes protecting your focus means limiting your exposure. You need people who hold you accountable, not enable your weakness. You need people who challenge your growth, not comfort your excuses. Your environment should reflect your commitment, not your comfort. It should be a mirror of your ambition. Everything you see, touch, and hear should remind you of who you're becoming, not who you used to be. Put your goals where you can see them. Write your priorities where you can't ignore them. Make your space a launch pad, not a lounge. When your environment is aligned with your purpose, taking action becomes easier. Not because you suddenly became stronger, but because the friction is gone. You no longer have to fight your surroundings just to get started. You create a space that works for you, that supports your habits, that reminds you in every detail that this life matters. You can have all the discipline and drive in the world. If your environment doesn't support your direction, you'll always be working uphill. Change your space and you'll change your state. Change your influences and you'll change your identity. Because when everything around you is designed to keep you focused, consistent, and committed, laziness doesn't stand a chance. Your environment is not a backdrop, it's a tool. Use it. Build it with intention. Watch how quickly your life begins to shift from procrastination to performance. Simply because you decided that your surroundings would no longer be the enemy of your future. Laziness doesn't always come from a lack of desire. A lot of times, it's rooted in one thing, overwhelm. You look at the goal, the task, the mountain ahead of you, and it just feels too big, too heavy, too complicated. So your brain trying to protect you shuts down. It tells you to wait, to avoid, to do it later. Not because you're lazy, but because it doesn't know where to start. When the mind sees something as too massive, it feels unsafe. That's why you freeze. That's why you scroll. That's why you clean the kitchen instead of building the dream. You're not resisting effort, you're resisting the weight of uncertainty. The mistake people make is thinking they need to tackle the whole mountain at once. But the key to momentum isn't in doing it all, it's in doing something small, something winnable. You don't need to finish the race today, you just need to take one step. The most powerful way to break laziness is to break the task down. Simplicity leads to motion. The more you break something down, the more doable it becomes. That's how achievers think. They don't get overwhelmed by the size of the mission. They ask, what's the first 5 minutes I can win? Because that first step isn't just physical, it's psychological, Prove to your mind that progress is possible. And once the mind sees progress, even in a small way, it starts to shift. It stops protecting and starts participating. Your energy rises, your clarity returns, and suddenly the task you were avoiding doesn't feel so heavy anymore. But you'll never feel that unless you shrink the starting point. That's how you create what matters, by starting with what doesn't feel threatening. Want to write a book? Don't write a chapter, write a sentence. Want to get in shape? Don't go for an hour, do 5 push-ups. Want to fix your finances? Don't overhaul your budget, just track one expense. When you lower the barrier to action, you make progress automatic. You remove the resistance and give your brain a win. That's the trick. You stack tiny wins. You build momentum not by doing massive things once, but by doing simple things repeatedly. And here's what most people don't realize: the small steps compound. They're not insignificant, they're the foundation. Every big change you've ever seen in someone's life began with one small, often boring, consistent action. And those actions created rhythm. Rhythm created confidence. Confidence crushed laziness. This approach isn't just smart, it's sustainable. Because if your only strategy is to push through with willpower, you'll burn out. But if your strategy is to create consistent micro wins, you build a habit loop that reinforces itself. The win creates good emotion. Good emotion encourages more action. More action creates more wins. And now you're in a flow that doesn't require force, it builds itself. People who seem like they have incredible discipline aren't superhuman. They've just mastered the art of removing resistance. They've trained themselves to focus on what's next, not what's everything. They don't let the mountain stop them. They find the next foothold and move. That's the mindset shift that breaks procrastination. You don't need to change your whole life today. You need to win your next decision. It sounds almost too simple, and that's the point. Simple scales, simple sticks. Complexity creates delay. But simplicity gets done. And when you live by that, laziness loses its grip. You're no longer frozen by the fear of the big picture. You're empowered by your ability to make the next move. So if you've been stuck, if you've been beating yourself up for not doing enough, stop looking at the whole picture. Zoom in, ask yourself, what's one thing I can do right now that moves me forward, even just a little, and then do it. And then ask again. Stack it, layer it, repeat. Because in the end, the people who get the furthest aren't the ones who move the fastest. They're the ones who never stopped moving, even when it was small, especially when it was small. Most people wait for the perfect moment. They wait to feel ready, to feel confident, to feel inspired before they take action. But the truth is, waiting is the greatest trap. It's a lie your mind tells you to keep you safe and comfortable. That sense of I'll do it when I feel like it is exactly what keeps people stuck for years. They convince themselves that they need to understand everything, plan every step, and eliminate all fear before they move. But here's the reality. Clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from action. Taking the first step, even if it's messy, even if it's uncertain, is what opens the door to motivation. You don't think your way into confidence. You earn it. You don't wait for momentum. You create it. The biggest myth about success is that the people who make it were always sure. No, they just moved anyway. They acted while they were scared. They tried when they were unsure. And because they did, they gained the feedback, the insight, the strength that those who waited never got. The human brain responds to movement, shifts its energy based on direction. When you're sitting still, overthinking, planning, waiting, your brain is idle, unsure, cautious. But the moment you begin to do even one small thing, your body and mind enter a different state. That shift, hesitation, emotion, flips a switch internally. It's no longer about what if I fail, but what's next? That's the real spark of motivation progress. The smallest win creates the biggest change in energy. Most people miss it because they overvalue planning and undervalue starting. Planning has its place, but it's not a substitute for action. You can have the perfect strategy on paper and still be stuck in the same place year after year. Nothing changes until you change, and change starts the moment you take that first imperfect action. And it's important to understand this action doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be flawless. It just has to be done. That's where the momentum comes from. That's when the fog starts to clear. One small step forward gives you information. It gives you feedback. It gives you motion. It tells your nervous system doing this. That's when the game begins to shift. You see, energy follows engagement. If you want to feel motivated, engage with what you've been avoiding. Move toward it. Touch it. Break it down. Work on it. Think about it. Touch it. Even for 5 minutes, even for a few reps, even for one sentence. That's the trigger. That's the gateway to the fire you've been waiting to feel. People spend too much time analyzing and not enough time acting. The ones who get ahead aren't the ones with the perfect plan. They're the ones who are in motion. They learn faster, adjust faster, grow faster because they're in the game. They're not sitting on the sidelines perfecting a strategy that will never see the light of day. They're testing, failing, learning, building. And because of that, they build something real, momentum. And here's something powerful. You start moving, you realize you don't need motivation the way you thought you did. You stop relying on inspiration. You start relying on rhythm. You wake up and move not because you feel like it, but because it's who you are now. Identity changes. You become the kind of person who takes action, not the kind of person who thinks about taking action. The mind loves to wait. It wants safety. It wants certainty. But growth lives in uncertainty. Power lives in action. The only way to reach that next level, the version you that you know deep down you're meant to be, is to act before you feel ready. That's how everything changes. You move, the resistance breaks. You move, the energy rises. You move, suddenly the impossible starts to feel possible. So whatever it is you've been putting off, start. Not tomorrow, not when you feel more confident, not when the stars align. Now, take the step. Begin the thing, make the call. Write the page, go to the gym, speak the truth. Do it scared, do it unsure, do it anyway. Because that first move is not just the beginning of the task, it's the beginning of a new version of you. One who doesn't wait, one who doesn't hesitate, who knows that action is the source of all transformation.